I'm here in Medjugorje and I'm with Father, what's your name?
Father Paul Pryor.
Father, when did you hear the first time about Medjugorje and what did you think when you heard about it?
The first time I heard about Medjugorje was in 1998, and it was through a classmate of mine who had been here a number of years beforehand, and he encouraged me to come to Medjugorje. I didn't really accept the invitation at that time. It was a little bit later on when I was working in a secondary school in Ireland, and there was a sister there, an elderly sister who was due to come to Medjugorje with a pilgrimage, and she was insisting that I go, and I kept resisting the invitation. And she got sick and wasn't able to go herself, and so she gifted me the ticket. And at that point I felt, well, this is a calling, this is a clear invitation, and I must accept. So that's when I came in 1989, yeah.
And what did you think and what happened when you came here? What did you experience?
At that time, I suppose I was a little bit sort of skeptical about the place, and I had heard many things about it, and there was lots of, I suppose, different spiritualities that I recognized, and people who were living their faith with different intensity. And at that time, I would certainly have felt that it was perhaps too much for me. And but I stayed with it, and I was part of a group, what I would describe as a high-powered group. But what I liked about the place was the sense of peace that was here, and that's what I think drew me, and certainly the way the Eucharist was celebrated. But apart from that, I think I took a sort of more of a back seat, more of an observer's position at that point, you know. So that was then, and it was many years really that I hadn't returned to Medjugorje. Nothing really opened up for me at that time, I have to say. But when I went to my parish then in Mulla just 4 years ago, Margaret Farrelly, who is one of our parishioners, she always runs a pilgrimage to Medjugorje, and she invited me, and so I came along. And I have to say my second time and my third and fourth time since have been just very different experiences. And I think part of that is because just the organization of Medjugorje, the program, everything is in place now. And so there's a real sense of coming and connecting and praying with everybody else, and being part of that spiritual program that's here in Medjugorje. Yeah.
And do you have personally any fruits of Medjugorje for your personal life as a priest, faith life?
Yeah, well, certainly for me, the witness of the sacraments here restored my own belief in the sacrament of confession. For me personally, and as a priest, just to experience what it is to go to confession again in a different context, and to be able to be a minister of the sacrament here has been a wonderful thing. So that's been personally enriching. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. And for me, it's amazing. You said you have relics of Saint Killian with you. You know what is amazing for me? I come from a region where Saint Killian came at the time, and he proclaimed the good news.
Yeah.
And it's funny to see now, I do these videos, and they're very widespread in Ireland, you know?
Sure.
It sounds like a circle closing.
Yeah.
And for me, when I heard this story that there's somebody with a relic of Saint Killian here, I said, I have to do that interview for me, because I recently went to the church. I went to Würzburg, where there's Saint
Yeah.
Killian's feast, everything is breathing. Saint Killian in Würzburg, maybe you have been there, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been to Würzburg a number of times, but Mulla, the parish that we belong to, is the birthplace of Saint Killian.
That's amazing. I get goosebumps. Explain, Father.
Yeah, that's where he was born in 640 AD, and he grew up there and then left there, and went to County Cork, where he established a monastery there, and then left by a place called Tuassist in County Kerry, left on a boat with 12 other men, hidebound boat. So you can imagine what that must have been like to navigate the seas and to arrive in mainland Europe, first of all in Rome, and then to be appointed by the Pope at the time, Pope Conan, who sent him, Killian, and two companions, Collinat and Totnan, to Würzburg.
Yes.
And they had a relatively short ministry there, the three of them. They arrived there, and in 686 they started their ministry, and it took off. It took off quite readily there. And the Duke of the time, Duke Gosbert, he was very taken by the Christian message, what the men had to offer. Very inspired by them and by their witness, and he converted to Christianity, and so that was I'm sure a great source of joy for those three companions. However, he wasn't satisfied. Killian wasn't satisfied with the way the Duke was living his life at the time. He was married to his brother's wife, so that wasn't I suppose
In proper order.
a proper order according to the Christian faith. And so Killian challenged him, and of course the Duchess Skylana was not happy with that challenge, and so when the Duke was away on a hunting party or some expedition, she ordered 3 men from the Duke's army to execute Killian and his 2 companions. And so within 3 years, they were executed in Würzburg, and their bodies, their remains, were buried in a secret location, and weren't found for many years, until something like the early 700s, 720, something like that, and they were discovered. And then the cult of Saint Killian, I suppose, began to grow in the area, into something, you know, that we have in Würzburg and in Mulla to the present day. And it really was an honor for our parish in the early days of October this year to receive the relics of Saint Killian, his skull and the skull of his 2 companions, the crown part of their skulls. This was something that the people of Mulla desired for many years. They had requested that the relics might return on a visit to Mulla, and it never happened for one reason or another. Permissions weren't granted, or maybe the correct disposition wasn't there, I'm not quite sure. But friendship over the years persisted, and people from the parish became very good friends with people from Würzburg, and with the local authorities there, and with the church authorities there, and gradually then the desire, the wish was granted. So this is a project or a desire of the people of Mulla that was in progress for many years, and was finally realized then in this year. So we had a wonderful 3 days in the parish of Mulla, and then 2 days either side of that, one in St. Patrick's College Maynooth, and also in Cavan in our diocesan cathedral, the Diocese of Kilmore. Wow. So we had a lovely programme, a great programme which was organised by a committee in our parish. We were organising it for the best part of a year, really trying to reflect and to understand, you know, what we wanted to achieve, and we wanted it to be a meaningful experience for everybody in in the parish, that whatever kind of faith they're experiencing themselves, that they could connect with the story of Saint Killian, with the message of Saint Killian. And so we did some interesting things. When the relics arrived on the first evening, the Thursday evening in Mulla, we greeted them at the site of the birthplace of Killian, wow, which is there now. There's a well, a blessed well. So we received the relics there. And the pilgrims from Germany, there was 105 pilgrims from Germany, led by Bishop Franz Jung, the bishop of the diocese. And so there was a lovely moment of exchange where the relics were presented, if you like, to the natives, the people of Mulla, of Killian's native parish. And the German pilgrims sang their Killian anthem, and in response then the people of the parish of Mulla sung their Céad Míle Fáilte to Killian. Wow. And so we just processed gently, talking. It was dark, it was after 8 o'clock. We had a bonfire lit on the hill of Mulla. There was lanterns lit along the road, people carried lanterns, and we just walked in conversation and in a prayerful way to the lake of Mulla. And then at the lake, 3 men from the local drama society stepped ashore dressed as the three saints. And it was a sort of an acknowledgement of Killian arriving home in this sort of dramatic form. And the Saint Killian character got down on his knees and he picked up the turf, the land from under his feet, and he said, "Home at last, let's go to the church." Wow. And that inaugurated the procession of the relics then, a prayerful procession. The people from the parish carried them, and the pilgrims from Germany accompanied us with song, because our choir were gone ahead to await the arrival of the relics in the church, in the parish church. So it was really a wonderful occasion. We arrived in the parish church, we had some prayers, we lit a candle, a tall candle. The bishops of both our dioceses, Bishop Martin Hayes of the Diocese of Kilmore, Bishop Franz Jung of Würzburg, lit a candle symbolizing their leadership and also the friendship of the two peoples. And so it was a lovely moment of just being united in friendship around our native saint, the son of the parish. Truly lovely. And that then inaugurated a night of vigil. Mm-hmm. So every townland in our parish came and spent half an hour in prayer over the course of the night, right through the night, just to be with the relics, to say prayers through the intercession of Saint Killian and his companions, and just to sit there quietly to reflect on life. And that culminated then in a dawn mass on the Friday morning. It was also the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, so there was a lovely sort of coincidence of saints on that particular morning. And our choir had practiced lots of lovely hymns and had engaged in learning new music and a new repertoire, if you like, for the liturgy. So all that was there too. It was a beautiful, uplifting liturgy, that dawn mass. And I remember, feeling that there's something about dawn that we're perhaps better disposed to the divine at the beginning of the day. Yes. And there was a real sense of blessing for the people there, for us as a parish. Mm-hmm. And then we moved then to that Friday during the day was a day for children, mm-hmm. for the children of our parish. And they were telling the story. They were telling the story of Killian to the children of the locality. So different schools from our pastoral area in Mulla, which is Saint Killian's pastoral area. Those children came to Mulla, and they heard the story from our children. Wow. So that was a lovely experience, because over the years, I suppose the story of Killian had got a little bit lost, and so this was a lovely way of just bringing it back to life again. And the children dramatized the story through a use of shadow theatre. Mm-hmm. they told the story in their own words, so there was a lovely narration of the story, and then enacted it in a form of shadow theatre, which was very effective, very poignant and very effective.
Wow, amazing! Yeah.
Yeah, it was a truly amazing occasion, and then just to, I suppose, to help the children from the other parishes connect with Killian and bring him to life a bit, that heard the story, but then we had a little workshop on the games Killian perhaps would have played, you know, and then there was another workshop on what Mulla would have looked like in Killian's day, where he would have grown up, what his house might have been like, things like that. So it was so they could engage with all that, and then on the Friday evening we had a wonderful concert, again in the presence of the relics in our parish church, and it took the form of a homecoming. It was a real welcoming home of Saint Killian, the relics, the spirit, all of that, and we had commissioned a new hymn for the parish by Father Liam Lawton, who's a friend of Medjugorje as well. And so Father Liam composed a lovely melody for a new hymn, which we learnt in the parish and in the diocese. And so that was a constant refrain over the course of the few days as well.
Wow.
And so then on the Saturday, which was the final day that the relics were with us in Mulla, there was a community procession of the relics. So every man, woman and child that lived in Mulla and belonged in any way to the parish processed with the relics up through the main street of our village in Mulla. And a great moment of pride for everybody, and a real moment of connection as well, with this son of the parish. And so yeah, the relics were then brought into the church for the final time and for a mass, which was led by our own bishop. And then after the mass was concluded, we went to the other part of our parish, which is called Cross. And in Cross there's some lovely stained glass windows depicting the story of Saint Killian. And so we brought the relics there. It was just a little stational liturgy, and families came forward. And that was what was really special about Cross. It's sort of like a community within a community. And the people there, they came and stood as families to venerate the relics of Saint Killian.
And for you as a priest, what do you take out of the life of Saint Killian?
His courage and his determination, and just, I guess, in a climate against all the odds, perhaps hostile, he heard the deep, still voice of God in his life, and he followed that call. And I think that's the challenge for all of us in life today, and that's certainly what I would have found as very inspiring. Even when the odds were against him and when his life was under threat, he did not hold back.
And a lot of people, they look for this connection, to hear that little gentle voice of God in their lives, the voice of the Holy Spirit, or the prompting of the Holy Spirit. How do you explain to your parishioners how to hear that voice?
I think through silence, through quietness, through reflection. People are busy, and in a parish like Mulla, people are busy doing many things and work hard and play hard, and perhaps sometimes just miss the opportunity to sit quietly and to appreciate the Spirit moving in our lives as we live. And just, I think for me during this time, one of the things I was trying to help people to see and appreciate was we have this wonderful gift in our parish, the story of Killian, his life dedicated and committed to God, and we'd lost sight of it. And I guess in a parallel way, you know, sometimes we can be living life like that and just lose sight of the Spirit at work in very ordinary ways, in extraordinary ways, in ordinary situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful how you say. And for you, Medjugorje, you know, the center of Medjugorje is the Catholic confession.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Confessional of the World. What would you tell people as a priest who are scared to go to confession? You have a lot of people here after 30 years, they go first time to confession and they're so scared. What is the beauty and why not to be scared about confession?
I think there's nothing to be afraid of, is the first thing I'd say. And to realize that when you come into the sacrament of confession, that it's conversation with Christ. The priest is there, but the conversation is with Christ.
So beautiful what you say. Yeah. Direct talk, and my spiritual guide said then also the connection is cleaned up. You hear clearer that little voice, gentle voice.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it's in your parish. It seems a lot of people don't understand anymore what is the Eucharist. Our Catholic faith teaches when we are in a state of grace, we can receive the Eucharist. Can you explain what is the Eucharist?
The Eucharist is the lifeblood of our relationship with Jesus Christ, his body and blood, the ultimate sacrifice. It's the thing which makes most sense to us. I always describe it for myself as the beating heart of our faith. And if we lose connection with the Eucharist, we lose connection with ourselves, we lose connection with the world, we lose connection with our faith. It's the connecting tissue. And it's the invitation. It's the invitation to become more what we receive in our lives.
You know, and a lot of people here in Medjugorje, they look for their vocations. Can you describe a bit your faith journey, how you knew that you should become a Catholic priest? And how could people discern how they can find their vocation as a family, father, mother?
I think that discernment is ongoing all the time. There comes a point when you hear the call in. I mean, I don't know if I would have heard it directly. Mm-hmm. I would have heard it indirectly through many channels that were continuously giving me consolation or affirming me in a particular direction. And I think it's been open to that and been open to working that out, what that call is, with God, with a spiritual director, with good friends, people who can support your journey, your vocation.
Yes, beautiful how you say. And you pray the rosary, Father?
Yes.
What is the power? Saint Pater Pio said it's the weapon of our times. What is so powerful about the rosary?
For me, it's just like a telephone line. Mm-hmm. You know, it's connection, and it's a way of calming and being quiet and reflecting. And what I like about the rosary is you don't have to think too hard about it. You can say the words, but the words are only secondary. What's happening as you're praying is where the prayer and the experience is.
That's amazing what you're saying. And you got a favorite spot here in Medjugorje?
Yeah, a few. One of my favorite places is at the graveside of Father
Slavko
Babaric. Yes.
Why that?
I don't know what it is there, but there's something I find there just is peaceful and mm-hmm. quiet and still, mm-hmm. And it's a little bit away from everything else, everything else about the life of Medjugorje. It's just a tranquil place, and I go there because I feel at the end of the day, because it's a busy day. A lot happens in a day in Medjugorje. That at the end of that day, it's just a nice place to go and percolate, let whatever's happened settle down and give thanks to God for. And I don't know much about Father Slavko. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to learn more about him, but there's just something from being there and I suppose knowing his hand and his guidance and his support of the visionaries helps me to understand that he's a good guide. He's a good presence to be near. Yeah.
Did you make the experience in your life? Because we have Luisa Picaretta behind us. When you live in the simple intention, thy will be done in my life, as it said in Our Father, that you're more in joy, more in peace, and things fall into place. Did you make that experience?
Yes, I think so. Those experiences don't happen up because I suppose, you know, there's a sense of wanting to be in control of one's life.
That's the struggle, right?
Yeah, and that's the struggle, exactly. And sometimes, you know, holding on to that, Jesus really has to work hard to kind of loosen my grip. But when he does, and when I trust, I suppose that's the fundamental thing for me. It's trusting. Yeah.
Amazing what you're saying. And you know, I meet a lot of people, they are spiritually wounded with their family history, whatever happened in their life. And I also found a lot of people, they then can't love themselves. They have a negative self-image. How do you help them as a priest that they get into the right order, that they are beloved children of God the Father?
I always try and understand wounds in my own life. Whilst they're painful, I think they're great sources of wisdom. And if you can come to a point where, after you've worked through some of the pain, and you can thank God for the wound, I think then you're better disposed to receiving the flip side of that, what the wisdom is, what the blessing is. And certainly in the sacrament of confession, when I experience that, I try to encourage people just to see, well, is there also a blessing that you're receiving from this experience as well? And that generally takes people in a different direction, because I think sometimes we get just stuck in our own woundedness, and instead of allowing Christ to minister to that woundedness, I think we can aggravate it. We can play it over in our minds a lot. We can aggravate it. It becomes more irritable rather than letting go and letting the healing happen. I have this expression to pray over things rather than to play over them in our minds.
Beautiful how you said. And at the end, what would you tell people? Why come to Medjugorje one time?
Why come? I feel I would say that if you receive the invitation, accept it, and just allow the experience to speak to you. Have your experience. It's unique. Your unique experience of God, of God's grace. I don't think I'd say anything more than that. Just allow the experience to happen. And
What can I say? Thank you for the beautiful interview.
Thank you.